Hi guys, welcome to Full Stack JS channel. In today's video, I will show you how I structure my backend Express project. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Before I get to show you how I structure my backend project, probably a little bit of theory. We have two common ways of structuring backend projects. Method number one is what is known as the MVC approach. M stands for Model V View, C Controller. So the Model View Controller approach, which is a little bit very much common today. And finally, we have my preferred method, which is the modular approach. I love the modular approach because it's easier to scale into microservices. And yeah, let's dive and see how to go about using the modular approach in structuring your backend projects. I will proceed and create a folder and probably call it backend structure. So backend underscore structure. I will change my directory to that. And I'll proceed and open Visual Studio Code at this particular point. So it has opened in my other screen. So let me just bring it on this end and yeah, maximize it over there. So here we are with the folder opened. First and foremost, I love to have the SRC directory where all my code base goes to. So I'll just go ahead and create my SRC directory, and then inside here, this is where I'm going to show you how I structure my Express.js, Node.js backend project. And let's assume that I'm creating a very simple web application with two entities. The first entity is students and the other entity is courses. So what I will do is create a folder for each of my entities. And as I had mentioned, my entity number one is students. And then my entity number two is courses. So you can see inside my SRC source directory, I have courses and I have students. So probably let's start with students and then finish with courses. So for students, I will proceed and create a file and call it. I'm a fanboy of TypeScript. That is the reason why I prefer using TypeScript over JavaScript. I think we can all agree once you go to TypeScript, you never go back to JavaScript unless you have to. So I've created a file, given it the name studentmodel.ts. So let's discuss what this file is and what will go inside this particular file. So the student model.ts file is a file that has the database schema. I believe you want to store your student somewhere in a database. The database has probably the student's first name, last name, the course he or she has enrolled to, age, gender, all those other data that you want to collect for a particular student will be stored somewhere inside the database. So the student model.ts is a file that defines that particular schema for the students table inside your database. So the student schema will go inside the student model.ts. And then I'm going to proceed and create another file and give it the name student service.ts. And the service file is the file that interacts with the database. So the service file is the file that interacts with the database. We all know of CRUD operations. I assume you all know of CRUD operations: create, read, update, and delete. So the student file is the file responsible for that. It can create it can create something in the database. It can update, it can remove, it can do whatever it is, read, whatever is in the CRUD, update, read, create, and yeah, so it can basically do that. And then I'll proceed and create another important file to have. And this file is the student controller.ts. So this file is responsible for API requests and responses, as well as the business logic. So all of your API endpoints after hitting the route will be forwarded to the student controller. So it handles the request body and also the response body. It's also responsible for the business logic of your particular app that you are building. So it's actually a very important file, the student's controller. And then we now have another important file, and it goes by the name student routes. We know we have so many routes. Probably the student model can, for instance, you might want to have a route to create a student, another route to update a student, another route to read a particular student, to read all students, to update students' details, remove whatever you might think of in the CRUD operations. So you will define all of your routes in this particular file using the respective HTTP verb: post, get, put, patch, delete, whichever HTTP verb you might think of, or whichever suits your business logic. So all those routes will go inside the student's routes.ts. And finally, another important file that I normally include is the student validator.ts. For instance, for you to create a student, you need to have a particular request body, and your request body should have certain parameters inside. It's good you don't know who your user is. Maybe they might omit a particular data. So the student validator, it validates the request body even before hitting your business logic inside your student's controller. So it validates if the request body is okay. If it's okay, it proceeds to the student controller, where it either adds the students to a database or perform whichever logic it's supposed to perform. If the data is not correct, the request body is not correct, it returns an error message. So a student validator works hands in hands with a validation middleware, so that either the next method is called or it returns an error message if the request body is not okay, or it's not the way it's intended to be. So that's it for the student. And then I'll actually do the same thing for the course. So I'll start with the model, which will define the database schema. Then I'm going to have the service file, which will interact with the database. And then I'm going to have the controller file. And this is the business logic, as well as request body and response body. I'm going to have my course routes. And finally, I will have my course validator. Yeah, as you can see now, there it is, as easy as that for both the course and the student. Now, if I want to move to microstructure, it's going to be easier because you can see everything pertaining students is basically under one folder. Anything to do with courses, it's under one folder. So moving to microservices is quite easier in such an approach as compared to the MVC approach, where you have something to pertain to students in so many different files as compared to the modular approach where everything is inside one folder. And with that, this is the end of this tutorial. I know some people prefer the MVC approach. Well and good, if it works for you, that's okay. For me, this is what I prefer. I prefer the modular approach. It's easier to scale and so on and so on. And yeah, that's the end of today's tutorial. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Yeah, cheers.